Well, at the time that I'm recording this, it's pretty late into the night of May the 6th, and I had recorded this a little bit earlier, just, pretty much spill my brain onto a whole thing, but, it ended up getting trimmed down to the last 2 minutes of, like, what, 20 minutes? So I get to do this again, yay! And I get to also talk about trigger warning stuff, sexual misconduct and things of that nature, everything that falls under that good old bubble, as well as manipulation and all that stuff. So yeah, it's whew, but where do I start? Well, I don't want this to go hopefully 20 minutes if I can help it, but I've been seeing the recent amount of people that have been making videos about someone named AnthemOverload. And what they particularly have been doing is there are a lot of his older friends or people that used to really know him, basically basically denouncing him. So I don't want to act like I'm hopping onto the bandwagon, but I hope this makes sense when I say it feels like I finally am a little bit free to talk about him, given the recent, or the not recent, but the overall stigma of if you talk bad about Anthem, you're going to get harassed by him and his fans. Um, I, I feel like I have the option to talk now, but there's two other reasons why I haven't really talked about my thoughts with Anthem, even though they've lasted back, since 2022.
Where, just to clarify, this didn't happen in the Spaghetti Cave. This happened in a separate friend group. But long story short, two of my friends who were in that group were getting actively and frequently bullied by Anthem and his friends in that group. Why? Because my two friends weren't okay with Anthem saying the N word. And the bullying got so bad that they were afraid to even go onto a Minecraft server that I shared with them and Anthem's friend group also shared with them. Also, keep in mind that that was told to me about 3 months before Anthem made his video talking about the Adelaide OST. 3 or 4 months. And in that video, he basically went on record saying he wasn't saying any slurs at the time of recording that video.
But why have I not disclosed my thoughts? Well, other than the whole being afraid of fans going after me thing, and I'm just not in the mood for that. Um, the other two reasons are that I thought back then it was kind of petty and stupid to go after someone who I don't have direct relations with. But knowing what Anthem has done and knowing, the root of the issue, which I'll upfront state there's two roots. The first root is just blatant and obvious disrespect of other people, by far, which is just a huge problem to me. And the other part is just failing to take accountability or just not taking the proper amount of accountability for his actions. Those are kind of the root of the issues, but it felt to me like it it felt like the root of the issues had grown so big that it didn't matter that I was not directly related to him, that I only had indirect relations through, the friends that he's hurt and the teams that he's put stress on and all that. I only have like indirect relations, but I figure now, the root of the problem has grown so bad that I need to say something. And then the third thing is I've call it foolishness, call it naivete, call it whatever you want. But I'm kind of a believer of people can get second chances if they truly show they will use that responsibly. And I was kind of hoping for, with Anthem being online, he was going to reach that epiphany. It seemed very unlikely, but I was just hoping in the back of my head that he'll have that epiphany that'll show him the error of his ways and he'll be able to fix everything and all that. Didn't happen. In fact, he's very much showing it won't happen through his own actions. It's a shame because he's a smart person, and I think everyone else is realizing just how smart he is, but he's become too smart for his own good. So that leads me to being here, being now, in this moment. I will start by saying, with all that I know about him, all the research I've done, and all the stuff that I've heard come out of his mouth and the mouth of others, I could easily make a 30 to 60-minute video essay about him, just him, and all the stuff that I want to talk about. I could talk about the multitudes of harassment issues that he's had. I could talk about the I could talk about the I should probably say a trigger warning as well. Skip ahead 20 seconds if you don't want to hear about it. The pornography. I could talk about how he only accounted for one piece of pornography when in reality he made one piece of frisk pornography and an entire collection of Undertale AU revenge porn, and he never took accountability for that. If you want proof, look at Cheyenne's document in the description. I'll put as many documents as I can in the description for you to read. Um, if you're here and you're back, hi. But I could also talk about Edeled and the reincarnate stuff. This is coming from a developer of that mod. And not just a developer, but a developer who felt like that was the worst mod experience I have ever had in my life. And if you know the first mod that ever got published with my name on it, you know that's saying quite a bit. But, I would never side with the Mass Chris. I would never side with Anthem. But I could talk about just that whole garbage war, because that's what it basically was. It was a whole war between those two. And to just show you how much extent I could really talk about this, when I used to be on the reincarnate team with the Mass Chris, and we were a little bit closer before things fell apart, actually, before that, I will share this little tidbit of information. I think someone, probably one of the developers, shared that the Mass Chris made it just to spite Anthem. I'm not going to say that's not a factor of it, but when I talked with the Mass Chris before I left, which, mind you, was 3 months before the whole mod came crashing down and some jerk-off decided to leak everything, including my stuff. Thanks, jerk. But when he was talking with me, he basically stated he was doing it for money. And I really do believe, looking at Anthem, the whole reason why he kept with system overload and why he kept with the whole we deleted you stuff and even tried to claim ownership of we deleted you was for the money, was for the views, was for all of that. Same with the Mass Chris. The only reason why he cared about we deleted you was the money, the fame, all of that. No sense of morality or integrity or anything that really defines you after you're gone. And nowhere is that more provable than in the direct message conversation between Anthem and the Mass Chris once the copyright strikes were laid down. I have that entire conversation on screenshot because the Mass Chris forwarded to me, and I'm no longer loyal to that hoe. I could put all of it online for everyone to see. And just to show that I'm not bluffing, let me give you a little bit of some context before I share a snippet of that direct message conversation. YouTube's copyright system. You could watch 100 videos about it, but basically, long story short, YouTube takes no stance in mediating or trying to fix a copyright issue. If you claim someone else's video, it's between you and the person you're claiming. You don't have anyone else to moderate or really tell you if you're wrong or not. If your video gets copyright claimed and you want to dispute that claim, you're disputing it with the claimant. So basically, you're trying to convince the claimant that their claim they're filing on your video is incorrect. It's butt backwards. There's a whole video that I've actually watched from the Fat Rat that I'll put in the description that actually talks about his experience with the system. And it really hasn't changed much in the 10 years that he made it. But regardless, the context, the reason why I say that is because go into the situation knowing that when Anthem filed those strikes, he had full control over the fate of the Mass Chris's channel and even his monetization, as I had done research on. He had the fate over, the channel and the monetization and all that stuff. So he basically was at the driver's seat. He was in the controls. The Mass Chris basically had to play to him, basically. That wasn't saying the Mass Chris wasn't manipulative. Anthem was 100% correct in saying the Mass Chris offered money, but the way that Anthem responded to the Mass Chris offering money, I have it pulled up here. I'm going to read it off to you. It goes like this. Quote verbatim, as much as I can without swearing. I hear payment, though, and from the exaggeration of the stuff against me, it jeopardized my payment off of other mods that I was going to get. I can't get a job because of COVID, and my family is ill, so I've been relying on payment from projects, but when stuff came out and even you forwarded it, that money got cut off. If that don't tell you Anthem is only doing We Deleted You and the whole YouTube shtick for money, I really don't know how to explain it to you. And it even comes at a time when, mind you, this is like almost second half 2022 when the COVID vaccine was going around. I had already probably long since gotten both of my COVID shots by the time this conversation happened. And it was just, yeah, you could really dissect a lot of what Anthem had to say. I could probably figure out, or not figure out, but I could really dissect his sob story. I could dissect the Mass Chris's as well, but Anthem's sob story, I've been to therapy. There is no way a therapist would pay Anthem for his bills. If you've been to therapy, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. But, I could talk about all of that in depth, but what I really want to focus on is the big claims, the claims about sexual misconduct. Now, when I say sexual misconduct, what am I talking about? Well, obviously sexual abuse, but it's a blanket umbrella term that includes, however, is not limited to statutory rape, dating domestic violence, stalking, sexual abuse, obviously I mentioned earlier, but also sexual exploitation. And if you're not familiar with that last one, that probably might be the most unfamiliar to you. Basically, an example of sexual exploitation is recording someone while they're in the shower. I've had to deal with that before. And that experience also has given me other knowledge that I would like to step forward and share, um, which is that the situation with Anthem has really gotten so bad that it's really only doing damage to himself. Because, with the previous stuff that's been brought up against him with Cheyenne and Casper, again, or not again, but really, they're not saints. We all can agree with that, but they are victims of grooming. 100%. They proved that. I heard what Anthem had to say. It hasn't really disproven the fact that they are victims of sexual assault, victims of grooming. But the issue that Anthem is now facing is that, not only has it hurt people, it can come back to hurt him because of how much he's done. What do I mean? Well, I've been through multiple jobs that had me going through experience talking about sexual assault, about the topic of grooming, pedophilia, all that stuff, which, before I actually talk about this, I do want to state and just make it clear, since this was a whole thing, I'm going to pop on screen 4 definitions of what grooming is, and I'll put all 4 of them, probably something else in the description as well. But the long story short of it, you can basically think of pedophilia as a more specific grooming case. Basically, both of them are the same action per se. They're both they're both a predatorial group or individual trying to coerce a victim, individual, person, party, whatever you want to call it, into performing acts of sexual nature. But the difference between grooming and pedophilia is that pedophilia specifically defines that the person who is the predatorial party has to be an adult, the victim party has to be a child. Grooming, any age goes. That's basically the long and short of it. But with all that training, I also got trained on a little federal law called Title IX, or the Equal Opportunity Act. So, Title IX, or the Equal Opportunity Act, is basically stating that any organization that is receiving government funding, which includes institutions and organizations and all that, cannot allow or promote sex-based discrimination. So, on the surface level, that means, you can't discriminate between male and female, but in the interpretation of this law, sexual misconduct, in the exact way that I described it earlier, is included in that definition and is considered sex-based discrimination. Why do I bring this up? Well, I think we can all agree now, hopefully, Anthem performed sex-based discrimination under Title IX, and he mentioned in his Ending the Controversy document he's currently going at a college or university. The major issue right now that he's facing is that any one of Anthem's victims who was a victim of sexual misconduct on or after September of 2023 can go to his school and file a Title IX claim. What does that do? Well, to kind of give a little bit of an explanation, first off, this is not like filing in like a police report or something like that. Equal opportunity investigations are not federal court cases. What they are instead is they're basically an investigation that tries to answer this question: is it more than likely that this individual, who is the person alleged of doing this whole thing, are they a person who committed sexual misconduct? And I do want to clarify as well. Um, the reason why I mention has to be on or after September 2023, they have to have been a member of the organization at the time of the incident. So some of the older cases, unfortunately, have to rely on the newer cases to hopefully step forward and do this. Um, the only person that has to be affiliated with the organization is the predatorial party. So the victim party can be anyone, even if they're not affiliated. And the oh gosh, the other the whole situation doesn't have to happen in on premises. It can happen anywhere, including online. So this very well fits the start of a Title IX case, and given the fact that, I haven't seen too much of these recent cases, but I trust the fact that there is enough information to at least cause this kind of change. And the fact that Anthem has already connected his real name to his online name, there is a legitimate case or an investigation that could be brought up in this. So, what happens if the answer to that question in the investigation turns out to be yes? From what I understand, and I could be very wrong with this, if I'm wrong, please let me know. Best case scenario from Anthem's perspective, he gets expelled from his university. And it probably may not be likely that he'll be able to go back into a university, because most of those applications probably ask if you've been accused of Title IX or something like that. Like, they pass information across universities. You don't understand. But there's that. But worst case scenario from Anthem's perspective, he gets arrested. That can happen. It's just not automatically going to happen. So that can legitimately happen. And that can legitimately end Anthem's career in his real life as well as his online life. Point blank. I'm not going to sit here and encourage it. I'm going to leave the choice to the victims. And I'm not going to sit here and say, give information or stuff like that. Please don't. Please don't give information out in public. This is not my call to dox Anthem. Because I don't ever want to encourage doxing. As much as I really don't like Anthem, I don't ever want to encourage the doxing of any individual. But what I will encourage is, this has already been encouraged, but if you were affected by him in some way, whether it's as a victim of his harassment, a victim of his assault, anything like that, know that you're being heard right now. Know that you're not alone. Know that you're being supported, you're being cared for, and don't be afraid to speak up. The world's listening right now, and I think it's important right now that we not just let this not slide with Anthem, but really in general, not just this community, but just in general, we shouldn't be letting these things slide. So I think the best thing you can do is just use your voice and speak up. And yeah, for those who have been affected by him, I just hope that all of you are doing okay tonight. I hope that all of you have, learned some things from this, that we don't have anyone trying to replicate the bad lessons here, and that hopefully, we can create a better, safer tomorrow. But, it's not for me to determine. It's really for the larger general public. So I just hope y'all are doing all right tonight. Thank you.